Hi, I'm Cheryl and welcome to my dining room. This is part 2 for making this beautiful fall panel quilt that is up on my dining room wall. Now in this video we're going to learn how to calculate how much fabric you need for the back, get your cotton batting ready, layer all 3 pieces, and do your quilting stitches. So let's get started. The finished length size of this quilt is around 56 inches. But when you're cutting the fabric for the back and the cotton batting, you need to make it longer than that. So it's recommended that you add another 2 to 3 inches extending out on each side of the quilt. So you're going to cut a piece that is either 60 to 62 inches long. Then you want to straighten out your edges at both ends. So make sure you use your grid lines to help you on your cutting mat. So you want to line the folded edge up here on a line and pull this edge here a little ways past a grid line here. Place your ruler on the grid line so you can make sure that it is straight. And then using a rotary cutter, go ahead and trim this edge off. Now we're going to cut the fabric for the back so that it will fit that quilt. So you're going to take your long piece of fabric that you've just purchased for the back, and you're going to leave it folded selvage edge to selvage edge, and then you're going to cut it in half. So just cut it right down the middle going this way. Then place the 2 halves on top of each other and line up the folded edges all the way down. Now you're going to cut the selvage edges off. So you're going to cut all 4 layers all at the same time. So then place your ruler on there and use your ruler as a guide and trim the selvage edges off all the way down. After you cut the selvage edges off, this is where my selvage edges were, unfold your fabric and bring the 2 pieces front sides together. Now remember, this is the selvage edges, so bring them front sides together. Place pins to hold this all the way across, all the way down, because you want everything to stay together nice and not be crooked. Then you're going to stitch 1/2 inch seam all the way down. And the reason for the 1/2 inch seam is that it's easier to press that seam open. So once you've done your seam all the way down, go to your ironing board, open up this seam and press it open. The next step is to cut any excess fabric off at the bottom of your fabric for the back. So here's my fabric for the back. It doesn't matter if you lay this face up or face down right now, but just lay it out. Place your quilt top on top of that and make sure on all 4 edges, actually 3, will have at least 2 to 3 inches out on each side. So kind of have it centered. But at the other end, and I'm going to pull this down, you're going to have a lot of fabric left over, and we want to cut that off. So what you would do is take your ruler and your rotary cutter and cut that bottom piece off. Now that you've got your fabric cut out for the back, now cut the cotton batting so that you can get it to the same size as this, your fabric for the back. Just lay down your cotton batting, place your fabric for the back on top, and begin cutting it to be an exact fit. Now by this time everything's so big you might have to go to the floor and lay it out, or if you have several utility tables, you can place those side by side and cut everything out. Now we're going to begin layering everything together. So here's your quilt top. So have it face down, front side down. Then your cotton batting, and then your fabric for the back. Now, one of the things you want to do is smooth it out, but don't use your hands to smooth it out. Take a long ruler. Now, if you don't have a long ruler, then use your hands. But if you've got a long ruler, this is the preferred way. So you're going to start in the middle of the quilt and just glide the ruler across and just keep going all the way around the quilt. You might need someone to help you lift and twist the quilt around, especially if you're doing it on utility tables. But if you're doing it on the carpet, it's going to be a little difficult to do. So I recommend you do it on a hard surface of some type. Once you get your quilt turned over to where the panel part is now facing up, your quilt top, you want to also smooth out that side and take the ruler starting in the middle and begin gently gliding, working from the center all the way out and go all over the quilt. Then after you've done that, it's best to use large safety pins and begin placing your pins all over the quilt. And it's usually best to start in the middle and begin working your way out, because you might have to smooth a little bit as you go along. Now you need to decide what threads you want to use to do your quilting stitches with. Now I'm going to use this dark beige color on the bottom of my quilt, and I'm going to use the chocolate brown on the top of the quilt. The kind of presser foot that you will need to do this quilting is called a walking foot. Now, your sewing machine probably does not come with one, but look in your bag of feet and see if this is in there. Anything that looks like this. If you don't have one, they're easy to get. You can go to your local sewing machine store and see if they can order one for you, or you can just go online. There are numerous websites that sell presser feet. In case you don't know what this part here does, it goes over the screw that's holding the needle in your sewing machine. So make sure that is on there. Then you need to decide what kind of quilting stitches you want to do. And I'm just going to give you some suggestions. You can do whatever you want, but I think if you're a beginner, these are pretty easy solutions. You can do your stitches side to side, okay, going this way, east and west, north and south. Then you can do the same straight stitch pattern going on a diagonal. And when you're doing your stitches, you want to put them, I would say, maybe 3 inches apart on this quilt. You could do them closer, but I think if you're a beginner, I would do them about 3 inches apart. Now here is a decorative quilting stitch that came on my machine. I like this one a lot because if my lines aren't very straight, it's hard to notice because I'm not the greatest at doing quilting. I get a little zigzaggy when I do it. Now you can also do this quilting stitch on a diagonal. And then if you want to do it on a diagonal, you would start in the middle and then work your way out, okay? And then turn and go the other way. Now this is easy to do on a pot holder, but because you're working on a larger quilt and because most of you are probably beginners, I'm going to have you start in a different way. So the first thing you have to do is roll up your quilt. If you have decided to do your stitching top to bottom and side to side, then roll your quilt up going side to side. Then place this part underneath the arm of your sewing machine and begin your rows of stitching. And as you complete a row of stitching, you would just unroll the quilt and move it over to where you would begin the next row of quilting. If you have decided to do your stitching on a diagonal, going from corner to corner, then roll it up, your quilt, going corner to corner. Place this portion under the arm of your sewing machine and begin your rows of stitching. And keep unrolling it out and going across. Now you want to place your quilt underneath here, and it's all rolled up. So as you stitch, you slowly unroll your quilt going out that way. You'll find it's really easy to control this than if you just try to have the quilt spread out all over the table. I also recommend you move your sewing machine to your dining room table and cover your dining room table so that it's protected, because you need a lot of space for this quilt to be rolled out. You don't want to be right up against a wall because you're going to really struggle and your stitches will come out really, really bad. Now also, this part right here, I use this as my guide for about 3 inches away from the needle. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start 2 to 3 inches from the corner, and I'm just going to go ahead and start stitching across. Then now I'm going to move it over to where this line I've just stitched, I can feel this. Okay, so I can feel that through the quilt. Then I'm going to go over to the edge and sew the next one. Another thing you want to do is to keep your quilt loosely lifted a little bit so it's not getting caught on the edge of your table. And just keep going across. Another suggestion that you can do, because a lot of people like to use them, are quilting gloves. And what they are is just a cotton glove with rubber on the inside here so that it's easy to grip your fabric. Then once you've gone all the way across your quilt, then you want to roll your quilt up from the other edge. Roll it up, put it underneath this arm here, and start all over again going down the other side. The last step is to put quilt binding around the raw edges on all 4 sides. To do that, you will need 1/2 yard of fabric. I am using a dark brown, but use any color that you like. I like my binding a little wide, so I cut my strips 2 3/4 inches wide. You will need 6 strips altogether. Cut the selvage ends off of the strips and then stitch the ends together doing a 1/4 inch seam. Then at your ironing board, press your seams open. Fold the binding in half and press your strips all the way down, all 6 lengths. If you need instructions on how to put quilt binding on, click in the link in the upper right hand corner and it will take you to a video that will give you very detailed instructions on how to put quilt binding on. Well, I hope you try to make this fall panel quilt. I think it'll be a great experience for you. Now, if you liked this video, click on thumbs up. Also, click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click on that red subscribe button in the lower right hand corner. Don't forget to enter your email address and click on the little bell so that you receive future email notifications about my latest video. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing.